Zombie Apocalypse.
Hello everyone and welcome to Player 2 Gaming. My name is Matt and I wanted to welcome you guys to this video. Dead by Daylight has been out for quite some time, but they have been adding some new content. As you guys saw with the opening of this one, I wanted to share the new killer that's been added to it, which of course is Pinhead. There was a lot of debate as to whether or not Pinhead deserved to be in it or not. But I definitely wanted to take a moment, and this is kind of a better late than never video review for Dead by Daylight, but more so it's a, why isn't Dead by Daylight better? Why is it not a better made game? Why is it not the game that we wanted it to be? Or the way what I wanted it to be? Because truthfully, one of the better games that kind of came out not too long ago was a game that, had the same kind of concept and, same kind of build around it. And it fired on all cylinders. It didn't really fire... Dead by Daylight does not fire on all cylinders the same way that Friday the 13th did. And it's definitely one of those things that when Friday the 13th was out, it was a solid game. I know that we can't exactly play that anymore. And that's because, the whole legal issues and all this and that with Friday the 13th. But, that was an example of here is a 1 versus 4 players kind of game. That, you had one person that was an overpowered killer, and then you had survivors, and you had to survive. It's the same exact concept as Dead by Daylight. Except there are great things about Dead by Daylight that make you want to play the game, but to me there's too many things that kind of create a hindrance with it, and probably the biggest offender is that it gets really boring really quick. Most games is set up like this that are online only, that you get in and you want to play repeat match after match after match after match, and everybody wants to play the killer, which of course makes sense. You've got a lot of killers that the developers kind of created, but one of the biggest draws to Dead by Daylight has to be the fact that there's so many licensed characters. You've got, like the opening video showed, you have Pinhead, and we'll get to those here after a while, but that is one of the biggest draws. And as you can see, I'm playing as a survivor right now, and I'm playing as Bill, which is a character from Left 4 Dead. If you've checked out any of my other videos, one of the very first videos I did, I talked about how much I enjoyed Left 4 Dead. So this is kind of kind of a fun way to kind of be back, you know, playing as the character of Bill. And we'll go over the other survivors as well. You know, as you can see, you know, playing the match and stuff like that, you've got generators that you have to rebuild, repair. Of course, you're running from the killer. You know, you can get certain items. You can get med packs that will help you heal your teammates, and you can get flashbangs that will temporarily blind the killer. And it's like those types of things are great, but it's just not enough. You know, like they tend to lean more towards the fact that it's a game that is designed to allow people to enjoy what makes horror such an enjoyable genre. You know, and I could do an entire video series on why horror and horror games are probably some of the most enjoyable that people tend to flock to quite often. I'm sure that you can look at throughout all of the YouTube channels that are going on and kind of see that for yourself. But one thing that I can say is that, you know, kind of going through, you know, here we'll take a look at the at some of the perks. One of the things that you've got in Dead by Daylight is you have blood points that you get to spend on both your survivor and your killer, and it kind of lends itself to a lot of customization. You know, what kind of character you want to play as, how you want to actually control the way that who you're playing as, you know, changes the way that you play the game. And of course, if you're playing with other people, you know, you kind of have to go hand in hand with, you know, how those people tend to play and how those people tend to do things. But you know, you've got costumes and just you've got a lot of customization that I didn't really expect in the game, honestly. So, you know, I'm going to take a look at the survivors, and I'm going to take a look at the killers that you have to play as. As I mentioned, you know, Dead by Daylight has its own characters, but I definitely think that we've got a lot of crossover characters. Like we've got Jill Valentine from Resident Evil. We have Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil. We have Steve Harrington from Stranger Things, which unfortunately Stranger Things is going to actually be going, you'll still be able to have them if you currently have them, but you won't be able to buy them anymore because apparently the copyright is done. As far as the killers, again, you know, a lot of stereotypical tropes through the horror genres, but you have Leatherface, Freddy Krueger, the Pig, which is Amanda from Jigsaw, Ghostface. You also have my personal favorite horror icon, which is Michael Myers. As I mentioned, you know, a couple of times, you've got Pinhead. You've also got the Demogorgon, Nemesis, and you've also got the Executioner. I cannot remember his name right now. Pyramid Head, which makes most sense because he's got a giant pyramid head on his head. Of course, he's from Silent Hill, and you get Cheryl as a survivor. to kind of play with that. And that's one of the really cool things with each pack that you purchase is DLC. You get some of these other characters, and you also get a survivor to go along with them. So as far as DLC goes, they really they give you a little bit more extra in order to kind of help you make that decision to spend on DLC. I've seen a lot of DLC in my gaming history that kind of shows and really ridiculous DLC prices. But definitely wanted to get back to why I think that Dead by Daylight is just not as good as it should be. Like I said, you've got all of these different characters, these different licensed characters that are iconic, and you take somebody that is a fan of the genre and you give them all of these iconic characters. They definitely want to play. They definitely want to get into it, and they definitely want to enjoy your game. The problem is that as you're playing, you tend to, like I said, you get bored. You're running around and trying to avoid the killer. You've got to work on these generators that are a pain in the ass to get repaired. And of course, as you progress, as you unlock perks with your blood points, you are able to unlock certain things. But while that's rewarding, it also it's very dissuading of new players to join in on the game. It really takes away from that initial early adopter enjoyment, and that's kind of my biggest issue with the game. Is you've got really just the generators to do. And once you get all the generators done, you have gateways that open. If everybody else is dead, there's a secret hatch for you to escape. Things like that. But the hatch is always different, which is good. The generators are always in different places, which is also good. And it's kind of like, there's enough variety, but there's not enough variety, and that's kind of my biggest issue with it, is the fact that there's not enough to do. There's not enough to keep the average player of this type of genre engaged. Like in every horror movie, the survivors, they find weapons. So why is it difficult, to allow the survivors to have weapons? It's definitely something that I get as a gameplay mechanic decision. But something as simple as that could change the way the game is played. And don't get me wrong, the developers, they support this game, a lot better than so many developers out there. They're constantly updating. They're constantly giving new killers. They're constantly giving, new maps and being aware if a map is not doing well or if there's bugs in the map, or, they are constantly working with the community in order to, make the game better. But I think where everybody wants to play as the killer and they focus so much on the killer, the survivors are really being left behind. You can kind of view that as a... Having said all of that, though, it's definitely, you know, a game that you can really get into, but you have to get past the level of boredom. You have to get past the fact that you'll play as a survivor more than you will a killer. And that's just the nature of the beast with these types of games. And that's true. You know, that's, you know, when it's a 4 versus 1 kind of concept. It happened with Friday the 13th as well. Everybody wanted to play as Jason. Nobody wanted to play as the survivors. But at least in Friday the 13th, you had different objectives. Like, you had different things that you could do that you needed to figure out to do that allowed you to increase the gameplay value. And I just wish personally that Dead by Daylight did that, because I want to enjoy the game. I've had fun with the game playing it, and I've had fun playing it with friends as well. And it's kind of one of those things that I want more. I need more, especially with this type of game. So that's just generally my consensus when it comes to Dead by Daylight. I want more from the game. I enjoy the game for what it is. It's a good game. You know, it has its faults, of course, you know, outside of my own personal complaints. But it could be so much more. And I just wish that it was so much more. So, anyway, hopefully, you know, the game will continue to progress, and maybe if we ever get a Dead by Daylight 2, they'll increase a lot of different things, and they'll allow a lot of different gameplay mechanics to be a little bit different. You know, or they might even introduce the capability of people being able to play on their own. Who knows? Wanted to say thank you for checking out my video. As always, make sure that you like and subscribe. And also be sure to hit the little bell, so that way whenever there's a new video that I've got going on, you'll receive a notification and you'll see what's new. So until next time, thank you guys again, and I'll talk to you later.